My name is Rebecca Turner, and I live a quiet, comfortable life in Colorado Springs. I've spent most of my adult years working as a social worker, raising my son, and trying to do right by my family. My son, Daniel, is 31 now, and for the most part, I believed we had a healthy mother-son relationship built on trust, openness, and mutual respect. At least, I thought we did. Over the past few years, Daniel became a father to a bright, curious little girl named Ella, my first and only grandchild. She was born with a few learning challenges that required special schooling and attentive tutoring. The school they enrolled her in was private, specialized, well-staffed, and incredibly expensive. Daniel came to me one afternoon 3 years ago, voice tight, hands clasped, explaining that the tuition and therapy costs had risen significantly. I didn't even let him finish. Before he could list the numbers, I offered what any loving mother would: financial support, specifically $4,000 a month dedicated strictly to Ella's education. Daniel protested weakly at first, insisting he didn't want to burden me. But I reassured him, I've worked hard my whole life, I have savings, and investing in Ella's future is a privilege. For the first year, everything seemed perfect. Daniel sent me pictures of Ella's classrooms, videos of her doing reading exercises, and progress reports from teachers. I felt proud of her, proud of him, proud of the role I was playing in helping shape her future. But things started to feel off. It began with small inconsistencies. Ella came to stay with me for a weekend, and when I asked her how school was, she paused thoughtfully before saying, "I don't go every day. Daddy says we have learning days at home sometimes." I brushed it off. Kids interpret things differently. Then a few weeks later, I overheard another mother at the park mention the very school Ella supposedly attended. "They don't do remote days," she said casually. "It's strictly on campus, 5 days a week." Very structured. That sentence stuck in my head for days. More red flags appeared. Daniel's updates seemed copy-pasted, repetitive, vague. When I asked specific questions about Ella's curriculum, he struggled to answer. When I asked for her teacher's name, he said he forgot how to pronounce it. But the moment that changed everything forever happened on a sunny Saturday morning when Ella and I were baking muffins together. She was stirring the bowl with her tiny arms when I asked, "Sweetheart, how's Ms. Harper at school?" She looked up, puzzled, and said, "Who's that?" I froze. That was the name Daniel had given me. I smiled to keep her comfortable and asked gently, "Well, honey, who teaches your class?" Ella shrugged. "Daddy teaches me. At home. And Auntie Rachel comes sometimes to help." I had no idea who Auntie Rachel was. That night, I barely slept. I kept pacing the house, replaying everything Daniel had told me over the last few years. I told myself to stay calm, to wait until I had proof, to not jump to conclusions. But the sinking feeling in my stomach grew heavier. So I decided to do something bold. Something I had never done before. I drove to the school myself. I walked through the modern front doors, approached the receptionist, and politely asked if I could drop off something for my granddaughter. The receptionist blinked in confusion. "I'm sorry, ma'am, what's your granddaughter's name again?" "Ella Turner," I said confidently. She typed it in, typed again, checked another system. Then she looked at me, expression shifting subtly, a mix of confusion and apology. "I'm sorry, ma'am, we don't have any student enrolled by that name." I felt the world tilt under my feet. I could feel the blood rush from my face, a coldness creeping through my arms. I thanked her with a strained smile, walked back to my car, and sat silently, unable to start the engine for several minutes. It felt like my heart cracked. When I finally gathered myself enough to drive home, I couldn't decide what hurt more, the possibility that Daniel lied to me, or the fear that Ella wasn't getting the education she needed. I knew I couldn't confront Daniel yet. Not without more information, not without certainty. So I started observing more closely. Where was the money going? His lifestyle didn't change much. No new cars, no vacations, no new gadgets. He still lived in the same small condo. Nothing seemed unusual, but something had to be happening with that money. The truth began to unravel one evening when his sister-in-law posted a picture on social media. There was Daniel, standing in front of a store, holding a large donation box next to a banner that read, "Community Crisis Relief, Supporting Families in Need." My heart raced. I clicked through the pictures. There were dozens of images of Daniel volunteering at food banks, shelters, tutoring centers, and even organizing fundraisers. Photo after photo showed him delivering boxes, writing letters, leading charity efforts. At first, I didn't understand. Why would he hide this from me? Why pretend the money was for Ella's school? The next part came from a chance conversation with my neighbor, whose daughter attended the same daycare Ella went to. You know, she said casually, your son is one of the volunteers there. Everyone speaks so highly of him. He's been helping families for years. That night, I drove to Daniel's condo. I walked slowly, my heart heavy but steady, and knocked on his door. He opened it with surprised eyes. Mom, what are you doing here? I went to the school, I said quietly. He froze. His eyes widened. His shoulders fell. He knew. He didn't try to lie. He didn't try to justify. He just stepped aside and let me in, closing the door softly behind us. For a long moment, we just stood there in silence. Finally, he said in a small voice, Mom, I messed up. I sat on the couch. Why? His eyes filled with tears. Because I didn't know how to tell you. I didn't want to disappoint you. And, I didn't want you to stop helping me. He explained everything. Ella did go to a smaller, more affordable school. She loved it and was doing well. But the majority of the money I had given him, almost all of it, he had been using for something else. Helping strangers. Helping families who had lost homes, jobs, loved ones. Helping kids who didn't have school lunches, parents who couldn't afford therapy, elderly neighbors with no income. He had redistributed nearly every dollar to families in crisis. I didn't know whether to cry or be proud. Why didn't you just tell me? I whispered. Because I knew you'd want to help even more. And I didn't want to use your heart like that. I didn't want to manipulate your kindness. His voice cracked. Mom, I didn't want you to think I was taking advantage of you. I sat there shaking, overwhelmed, torn between anger and awe. Yes, he had lied. Yes, he had misused my trust. But he hadn't used the money selfishly. He had used it compassionately, quietly, anonymously, for people who desperately needed it. I told him sternly that the lying had to stop. That trust mattered. That communication mattered. That no matter how noble the intention, dishonesty created harm. But I also told him something else. I'm proud of your heart, I whispered. But next time, let me choose how I want to help. We agreed to start fresh. I continued supporting Ella's real school expenses, honestly this time. But I also began joining Daniel in his community work, donating, volunteering, helping families together. For the first time in years, we grew closer, not because of money, but because of purpose. And Ella, she flourished, happy and thriving. I tell this story because sometimes, the truth we fear may lead us to a deeper understanding. Sometimes even a painful discovery can reveal something unexpectedly beautiful. But most of all, I learned this. Even the strongest families can experience fractures, but honesty, compassion, and humility can repair them. And sometimes, the heartbreak leads to hope.